Hello guys and welcome to another video. This one's going to be a little scuffed, I think, a little messed up. Basically what I wanted to do is make a video regarding Guild War, and it's a function that's not been around now for about a month. Basically since the full release it was stopped, and the new season should be starting within the next week or two, and therefore I thought it would be a good idea to share my sort of basic tips and understandings of Guild War and sort of things for you to note, some general tips, maybe some team stuff, what to do. And again, these are my opinions. So if someone's done Guild War and they have completely different views, you're welcome to follow their ideas as well. All I've got to say is I've played through two seasons now. First one wasn't in full. The second one was in full for me. So, um, the first one we didn't get as I think we didn't get a placement even though we fought the wars, because we were late to it. But the second time we did get into the Guild War and we managed to get 11th. Right. So what I wanted to do is share some sort of basic ideas, show you any pictures that I have because they are limited because I can't get into the mode. So whatever we've sent over the last couple of months is what we have. So I can't take pictures of everything, but yeah, this should give you a rough idea on what's to come and some basic things so you don't sort of stumble as soon as you jump into it. So this is sort of the map. As you can see, as the initial picture, you start on the left-hand side. Those are your bases, the blues, and essentially this outer layer. So 12, 11, 10, 9, and 8. On the left-hand side here, those are your outer ones, and then they will sort of have their own on the right-hand side and above you. So let's move on to the next slide. So basically, and I hope it's not blinding it being so white, the screen, but it's either going to be 1 versus 1, which is what you can expect right in the beginning. And then depending on where you are in regards to the leaderboard, sort of the difference in points between you and the other guilds, you may find yourself doing 1v1, as well as elimination rounds, which are 1 versus 1, and you essentially go through a bracket fighting the guild next to you as the top 16, and then you go into the top 8, finally top 4, and then finally the 1v1 that sort of ends it all and determines the winner of the actual full-on thing. Now, the rewards you get are quite basic for at least the general wars. So when you have the war, it will last, I think, 36 hours or something like that. It's a day and a half, maybe I think just under a day and a half or around there. That's sort of the fighting period, and you get some minor rewards from those. They don't tend to be the biggest, but they are consistent because you keep going into guild wars, all the time. So these rewards do add up. But the other things you do get is the big reward right at the end. Obviously, depends on where your team places, but generally you're looking at being somewhere like, I don't know. I think top 16, you get yourself the border around you. I didn't add a picture for that, but even then, you still get some gems. You get some materials to buy stuff from the store, so to buy evolution mats, as well as some units, which will be like a random chest where you open up and you get like a legendary from it. And I think we got 3 of those, which I think were just general unit ones, so fodder. And I think one of them was a legendary one, which you get to choose one of the 3, if I remember correctly. And again, this was over a month ago, so I'm not 100% gonna remember every single one. All right, now this is what my sort of idea is for people is uh, you basically, as you begin the game, you have your strongholds, they have their strongholds, and you take their strongholds to get points, right? And you set up your defenses the time before, and these defenses will persist. Obviously, if anything's changed, if you want to move units around and you find these defenses to be maybe better combinations, can go ahead and shift that, and you do that before each war. But generally, you don't have to. If nothing's really changed, all you did is just get your units stronger. They'll be updated, and you use those same teams. You can have a maximum of 30 units in your defenses from yourself, so as one person. But obviously, your team also has their own 30. But when you first start in the game, you're looking at maybe making a max of 3 teams that are consistently strong. And you don't want to separate these because if your opponent's going to attack, even if you have one strong unit there, if the other 2 are weak, it's going to likely result in some CC usage, so crowd control, to stun them or something like that, to just take them out before they can actually do something that allows them to survive, like a shield on Ramil, or something like a Terrence using his shield. So keep in mind that when you first start, you make three really strong teams, and those are the teams that you can use as your defenses, right? Now, here I put some pictures of defenses I may use. In this example, my Gisela here is actually level 266. However, she's a 5 star, and I'm only using her as a means to provide the sheep. Right? So in this case, maybe I'll make this as one of my attacking teams. I usually won't have this as a defensive team, but it's possible if, for example, I've already done three and I have some minor units left over, where there's maybe one strong unit. Use units that are still strong despite not being leveled up in stars. That would include Lionel with his immortality. If you have a Lionel with maxed out skills, even at five-star level, he still will last those seconds through his immortality as the effect. So it's worth to put that in, right? And I believe between each battle, even I think the general passive stuff remains. So I think something like Sheep will remain, something like Margaret's ult would remain. I'm not entirely sure because we need to find out how that persists. But it is, it is useful to consider at least. And you make your teams, you make your three strong teams that usually you want to have some sort of bonus with them. So here is sort of like not the best team example. They're close together. The Rangers, maybe some sort of front line will attack them. In the one in the middle, you have Sheep, which is not too bad as if you have no other choices. And here I have a good team example. So Terrence being a huge damage dealer as well as some sustainability, so he will remain with a decent amount of health and will have his dust shields. You have Margaret, who's going to be a really huge healer, and you got your Lionel, and both of them have a passive ability that I think would reset with each battle, and therefore he will be always immortal for a portion of the match. And Margaret would also revive Terrence consistently. So it's worth to think about the teams, but make about 2 to 3 really strong teams, because and if you keep throwing out a single 11-star and then crap, what's going to happen is that team's not going to get used for your strongholds unless you are at the stage where you have to use those teams, which is chances are you either lost or you dominate the map so bad that there's no way of losing. So you sort of want to get that middle ground of where you have some strong teams to begin with. Okay, so these are these are the general tips, right? So damage persists. So as I said, any damage you take will remain on your character. This is something that they have spoken about that's going to be in the next Guild War, and this is why I'm going ahead and saying that this will likely be the case, unless they veto any of their decisions. But what it basically means is that you don't want to have teams that are too unbalanced, because if you have three strong assassins, sure they'll beat a couple teams to begin with, but maybe one healer and two assassins may actually last longer. So you got to think about what you put together. If your strongholds get blocked off, you will not get points. And that's one of the ways we won our guild wars, just by blocking off what they had already taken, and that resulted in them losing 5 strongholds for a while, and when they finally did get them back, we had gained too much points for us to care, right? So it's not all about you getting the most strongholds, it's also about you fighting to limit their point gain, and you get points as you essentially take more and more strongholds and more points come through. And these strongholds, as I showed you in the first picture, there's paths in between those strongholds. So if the units can't walk from there, like the, well, not NPC, but they're just the little characters walking between them, they won't give you any points. If you need your 5 attacks, which is basically the minimum you need to do to gain the rewards. Attack with level 1s, don't waste your units. If you know you're just gonna lose or do badly, because if you put like a 1-star unit against them, what's gonna happen if you put a strong unit against them, or you know something, even someone who can last a little bit of time, what that may result in is their healer actually healing up their units, and all you've done is just giving them health from maybe being half health, and meaning now your teammates don't have the chance to beat them easier. So just be smart with how you play, obviously with who you face, but also attack the team that's losing. You don't want to give any extra points to the team that's first place, but only barely, because you may be able to beat them with a couple more strongholds. If the other team's losing really, really badly, that's when you offload your 5 attacks, and it doesn't really matter. It won't change anything. Also, don't be afraid to wait a little bit of time. This is something that you see a lot of people do, where they start Guild War, they just attack and attack and attack, and there's no waiting. There's no time to wait. What you want to see in, especially in a 1v1v1, you don't want to be put in a position of where you use up all your attacks, you block one off, the other team comes along, they go ahead and take those strongholds back, and then maybe take a part of yours, and you have nothing to fight back with. So if they could push into your base and have just enough to lock you off, but now you've blown everything and you can't get out, whilst typically you may have been able to. The other thing to note as well is the top three people in your guild get extra rewards, the most attacks, the most points gained. And therefore, that's something to know, because if you want some extra rewards and maybe you're fourth, think smart, think how you use it, make sure you don't waste your units, the energy which they spoke about. Try and get wins, and try to do the best that you can, because you will get extra stuff. There's also a practice mode that they mentioned, which is essentially, you can test the fight beforehand. So there will be times with certain people that are, a good few steps above the rest, will go ahead and, maybe be able to win a stage with one unit rather than using three. So it's worth in those situations to potentially test it with one unit and see how they perform. If it turns out they completely beat them, you can go ahead and use them. So there's a test, and I think it's either per stronghold or per battle. I am not entirely sure, because these are new things that are coming in the next week and a half. And the last thing to say is you get 30 points for first place, 15 points for second place, and 7 points for third place. And I will say is that, second place does really matter a lot, right? So don't be sad if you get second places. They will add up, and it's really, really worth it, because someone you may have lost to may then lose the following time. Like, you don't know who you're facing, right? When it first begins, the team that you first get put against is the team that's actually going to win it all at the end of the day. So it's important to still try and do the best that you can. Try get your second places, and do keep trying, even if it doesn't look like you can win. Guild prep. So what I want to talk about is some things that you can do to make sure that you're actually most prepared for, the Guild War, and that is have a lot of elders at different time zones. Now, anything that you take, right? Any strongholds that you take, they need to be populated with defenses, which is also why I said to basically save some teams. I don't know if I said it yet, but basically save some teams, right? When you're plotting your defenses, do keep some strong teams as well, because if you lock them off, there's no point of you going far beyond your strongholds, taking over their entire front of their base, the three that block them off, and I'll show you that in a second, and then essentially have nothing good to put in there, because they will just break through if they're weak teams. Don't put all your strongest teams together. Put the stronger ones obviously on the outside. Hopefully those are going to be stronger. But I also noticed that most guilds go ahead and take you from either the top or the side or the right hand side, the top or the bottom. They don't go through the middle, so you can put some stronger defenses on those two, because they won't be able to. It'll just be harder for them. They have to go very weird routes, and it's harder to lock you off at that point. But anyway, so have elders. Make sure they're there to put new units in. And then don't. The other thing is, if you're in the middle of the guild war and you have someone who's really, really strong that's potentially quit, and they are miles ahead of everybody, don't kick the big players. Hold on for a little bit. Make sure you can find replacements for one thing, but their defenses can still be used. So it is really worth for you to keep them. Unless this thing changes, that's a recommendation. Also, one thing I was gonna say is, for our guild war, we probably got into the top 16 partially because I knew people in different guilds. So I've known them on Discord, and when we were facing each other, we were not familiar with who the other third team was, because then there's no representative on Discord. So basically they went ahead and took them out first, and then took us out second, meaning that we got second place. It's very cheesy. It's borderline not really cheating. It's being a bit scummy towards the other team, but there's times where you just want to get a higher position, and it may be worth just, finding out who your friends are. Don't go yelling around, who's in this guild, I need help. But if you know people, if you get familiar with them on Discord or in game, they may have a different view towards you, so they may put you second instead of third. And they also spoke about a loaning feature, which means that you are able to borrow your units to your teammates, which may be worth for you to speak to your team, to your guild, if you have a guild Discord, and basically figure out whether your units, lack something. If you're someone who invested heavily into tanks and you lack the damage, I don't know how many times you can borrow their units, and if those units can be borrowed. I think it's a gem cost to do that, so do know, but I don't know if you can borrow the same attack unit. Everyone can borrow them once. or if it's just 1 or 5 times maximum. But do speak between your guild and find out what units people need. You may need a strong healer and you don't have one. You may have Waga, you may have Grigor, or Suver, who are not the biggest of healers. They're supporters. They're not the biggest of healers. So someone can put on Margarets, or a couple Margarets, to allow you to sort of bridge that gap between the needs of your team. You may have one tank and a bunch of damage dealers, and for you, getting extra damage dealers is just not going to do as much as getting maybe a healer or another tank. So, and then last slide here is I want to talk about a very common strategy, and I've spoken about it already in this video. What I was going to say, so in this situation, and I hope you can see my let's see, I do a fucking highlighter, I guess. All right, so let's do this, right? So you will begin here. Oh, it's not letting me draw. Ink color. Can make it red. And then let's try the pen. Okay. Okay, so you start here. This would be your base, right? And the common, very very common strategy, and this is sort of like this. It's separated like so, right? So their team above, and then sort of you're to the left, they're to the right. So one of the common things, and you can see an example here, is we progressed through the bottom, right? Like so. And then we went ahead and took over their 3 here. And I put another little sort of indicator of SH here. And then their base essentially couldn't get any more. And even if these were their color, so all of these here, in this sort of big clump, if these were all theirs and they were all orange, it wouldn't matter because they couldn't get points. And that's one of the main strategies to do, which is why you also save defensive units to fill these here. Right, so these bottom one on the bottom right, these 2 strongholds, and the other one here that's written SH. What you want to do is fill those with some stronger units, and you can block them off. But you can wait for a little bit of time before you do that. So I'm going to end it here. These are some minor things for you to note when it comes to Guild War. I can't cover everything, and I also don't know the exact changes that will be coming through. So I can't say for certainty that none of this will change. But these are good things to know, and I don't think these fundamental aspects of Guild War will have any changes going on. So I'm going to leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed. I don't want it running to 20 minutes. I think if you're going to prepare for Guild War, this gives you a rough idea. And worst case scenario, if some things do change, I'll make another video. I don't mind. But hope this gives enough of an idea. I don't know if it will. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope it does help out. But it is what it is, right? Like, maybe this was the worst video you ever watched. This is the first time I've brought up PowerPoint, so it's the effort, it's not editing or anything, but it's actual pre-prep that is in my notepad on the left. Anyway, take care and have a good evening, day, whatever, morning, night.